the demons go into the carved idols, right? They're blowing it in so that like the Annabelle doll. So the demons inhabit these idols, and then they sacrifice this meat to the demons who are in attendance at the dinner party. Okay. And then everybody divides up the meat, and then they eat the meat in tableship covenant. So they're making a covenant with the demons by eating the demon meat. But they're having table fellowship with the demons who have inhabited the idols at the ritual. That's the idea. That's the setting. So now we're going to jump over to the Jerusalem Council letter and what the instructions of James actually said, because this will make a lot more sense. And we're going to go to Acts 15. Share this tab instead. Why in the world is Paul paying for offerings to glorify God at the temple if Jesus didn't have offerings anymore? Why isn't he arguing about that? Why are they keeping the law? Why are they keeping vows? Doesn't anybody ask this question? No, they do not. You know why? Because your teachers teach you 3 sentences from Paul. No one's righteous, not even one. And then they move right along. And they don't teach you anything about the Bible. And it makes me furious. I wonder why James is having him take a vow and asking Paul to keep the law if Jesus got rid of the law. So I'm sure Paul stood up to him in front of everybody and said, well, that's because you guys are wrong. Because Jesus came to me on the road to Damascus. And by the way, I've got a demon meat sandwich from the Moloch festival that I packed in my lunch bag when I came down to see you. Would you like some demon meat? As long as you know, just say Jesus and it's okay. You can eat it, James. Have some demon meat. Is that what Paul's doing here? Is he sharing his sandwich with him after his long road trip down to Jerusalem in his pocket? Because James knows there's only one God. Is somebody told us that is, hey, you know there's only one God. Don't worry about the Moloch meat. Don't ask, don't tell. Why isn't he pulling a sandwich out and giving it to James? Well, Paul saw him on the road to Damascus. Where's that here? Why isn't he arguing with James about this? Because he's a false teacher. Yes, sir, James. Right away. I'm going out to purify myself. So either A, he knows he's a fire and he just got caught. Or B, he's just trying to save his own ass from getting killed. So he's willing to throw his Jesus Christ, personally chosen apostle on the road to Damascus, just say Jesus, out the window. He's going to throw his Moloch meat, picnic food doctrine right out the window. And everything that Jesus told him to say, he's just going to turn his back on that right now. It is not preaching the true word of Jesus that Jesus gave him on the road to Damascus. Then 7 days. He did this for 7 days. This isn't just like one little, wait there and keep it moving. He was doing a Nazarite vow, a 7-day Nazarite vow. So, Paul has this great doctrine from Jesus, right? Jesus himself gave it to him. Let's see what Jesus says about picnic meat. The first thing he says is the church in Ephesians. Now remember, the church in Ephesus, or the Ephesians, are the ones who chased Paul out and beat his ass. Okay? Twice, and tried to stone him. All right. And Jesus congratulates them. Paul, by his own words, from Paul's own words, the church of Ephesians beat his ass and threw him out of town. Okay? And here's what Jesus says to that same church. Does Jesus say, hey guys, I'm really mad that you beat the shit out of my personally chosen apostle? No, he does not. You know what Jesus says? Jesus says, I know you can't tolerate wicked people, and you've tested those who claim to be apostles but are not, and found them false. Good job, Ephesians. I'm so proud of you. Hate the practices of the Nicolaitans. Who are they? They're important. They're really chummy with the churches of Paul. They're all through Antioch. We're not going down the Nicolaitans rabbit hole, but just know that they're demon meat eaters. Okay, so just have that. They did what? did the Israelites do? This is an Old Testament story that he's referring to. We don't need to go down the rabbit hole because he's going to tell you what he's talking about, just in case you haven't read that story and you want to be clear. The teaching of Balaam and Balak to entice the Israelites to sin so that they did what, Jesus? Ate food sacrificed to idols. Wow. Almost sounds like the letter of James, doesn't it? Certainly doesn't sound like what we read with Paul and his don't ask, don't tell theory. Go ahead and eat the meat, have fun. Just as long as you, did Jesus say, as long as you think your conscience is clear, go ahead and eat the meat, but don't eat in front of weak people. Only strong people can eat it. Is that what he said? No, that's not what Jesus said. Peter stood up and said to them, brothers, in the early days, God made a choice that by my mouth, the Gentiles should hear the word of the gospel and believe. This is what Peter is saying in front of God and everybody at the Jerusalem council. So the Pharisees are there. James, the leader of the church, the Zaddik, is there, Jesus's brother. The apostles are there. Paul is there. And Peter stands up in front of God and everybody and says, you know, all the people present, including Saul of Tarsus, that in the early days, God made a choice that by my mouth, the Gentiles should hear the word of the gospel and believe. No, we're not doing the janky Pharisees. So he bitch slaps the Pharisees and says, I'm the guy to the Gentiles. And he said it in front of Paul. He said it in front of James. He said it in front of the elders. And he said it in front of the apostles. There should be no debate anymore. Peter has spoken. And nobody disagreed. You know why nobody disagreed? Because the whole assembly fell silent. Not only infidelity and adultery, that's there too. It's also demon sex magic. It's also ritual sex magic. It's also occult sex magic. It's also occult ritual magic with prostitutes in temples, which we haven't talked about. But they used to have prostitutes in the temples to be hired because they believed that the sexual energy brought you closer to God. Abstain from what has been sacrificed to idols. What is sacrificed to idols? That's the food, the meat. They're sacrificing the meat to the idols. So James is saying, don't eat meat sacrificed to idols. Then we get to Antioch. And Peter came to Antioch, and I opposed him to his face because he stood condemned. Because before certain men came from James, who again is John Mark, remember we put that together, he was eating with the Gentiles. But when they came, he drew back and separated himself. So even Barnabas was led astray by their hypocrisy. How do we know that certain men came from James is John Mark? Because this is when Barnabas was led astray and he and Barnabas had a falling out and Barnabas left him. Why did Barnabas leave him? Because Barnabas said, if we're going, we're taking John Mark, the guy who came from James, with us because we're keeping an eye on you, Paul. And Paul said, no, I'm not traveling with John Mark. Remember we put this together last time. John Mark's the one that tattled on me the first time and got my ass dragged down to Jerusalem Council. So no, I'm not going anywhere with John Mark again. So he's fighting with Peter over food because certain men came from James. He was eating food, and then they drew back. Okay? So John Mark gets involved, and Peter pulls back from eating at the table. Up here, from this little bastard gets so angry at Paul, you guys, where he said the only thing that they told Barnabas, they gave the right hand of fellowship to Barnabas and me, and we should go to the Gentiles. And only they asked us to remember the poor. They didn't ask us to tell you not to eat meat sacrificed to idols. He forgot about that. So if he's not saying it, he's not teaching it. He's not talking about the demon covenant. He's not talking about the blood. He just says, he didn't tell us to do anything. They didn't add anything to me. So he's completely leaving out. So I went, wait a minute. If Paul didn't say, Only don't eat meat, sacrifice idols, don't do blood, all the things that James listed, right? He didn't say that. He said, just remember the poor. So Paul's not even giving an accurate account of this. He's not mentioning the demon covenant, table covenant, demon fellowship ritual meat. And then right after that, Peter gets up from eating. So I immediately went, wait a minute. Is Paul teaching wrong in Antioch? And that's why Peter got up, because we know the certain men who came from James is John Mark, right? And then we know that everybody left him because they agreed with Peter, and they said, we're not going anywhere with you, Paul, unless we have John Mark with us to keep an eye on you. And he said, no, he's not coming with me. And so Barnabas left him. So we know this is what we're talking about, the same time here. Okay, they're led astray by their hypocrisy. It wasn't hypocrisy, guys. He was teaching. He wasn't teaching to abstain from demon meat. So Peter was sitting at a table with Gentiles eating food that had been sacrificed to demons. And when he learned that from John Mark, who'd been spying on Paul at Antioch, he withdrew and said, I can't have table fellowship with you because this Paul is teaching you the wrong thing and spreading the wrong news all over town. So I don't know what to fit in this meat. I have to get up. Uh-oh. Where is that Paul? Where is this guy? Isn't this the guy? Those who were held in high esteem, whatever, makes no difference to me. They added nothing to my message. No, I am justified in Jesus Christ. I'm justified by faith, James. And by the way, y'all mean nothing to me, you pillars. Don't we remember? Where's that Paul? Where did he go? That's my question to Christians. Where's the Paul from Galatians? You told me that I was entrusted with the task of preaching the gospel to the Gentiles, James. Butt out. You and Peter are talking to the circumcised guys. I'm not. I don't have to follow your laws. No. James, Cephas, and John, those esteemed as pillars. You gave me the right hand of fellowship, James. Don't tell me to take a vow. James, don't you remember that you recognize the grace given to me? I have the grace, James. Don't tell me what to do. All you told me was to remember the poor. So why are you making me take a Nazirite vow, James? Is Peter still hanging around? Because I stood up to him too. Why are you sending Peter? Why are you sending people from you? Why are you sending people up? James? Hey, James, why are you interfering with my Jesus spoken gospel, James? Right here. Why is he? I'm literally quoting back to you in that whole part that I didn't share the screen. I was quoting back to you all of Paul's big mouth talk in Galatians. And I'm wondering to myself, I would think that now that he's sitting in front of James, he's got an audience with him. Why doesn't he ask him about this? Hey, James, why are you sending certain guys up to spy on me? That made Peter become a hypocrite when he was eating with Gentiles. All you Jews are just hypocrites. Even Barnabas was led astray. You guys are all led astray. Why are you forcing people to follow Jewish customs? We, James, who are Jews by birth, we know a person's not justified by the works of the law. So why make me take a Nazirite vow? I have faith in Jesus. Jesus himself came to me on the road to Damascus, James. What are you talking about? Are you kidding me? I died to the law so that I might live for God, James. Your brother, James, I'm not taking that Nazirite vow, James. You know why? Because then your brother died for nothing. You and Peter and John, you esteemed as pillars, gave me the right hand of fellowship. Get out of my business, James. Is Paul aligned with Jesus in Revelation? Or is James aligned with Jesus in Revelation. I'll give you a minute to remember this. Oh, James is. So who should we be following? I'll leave that up to you. But people get really offended because I just call Paul all kinds of names because I get so much anger with this guy. And I get so much anger at the immense way that Christians have been led astray. So deeply